You're listening to the Breakaway Wealth Podcast, the show that helps you build wealth faster, think outside the box, and break out of the herd. Here's your host, Jim Oliver. Welcome back, Breakaway Wealth. I'm your host, Jim Oliver, and with me today, I have a special guest that's going to talk about something really cool, and I'm excited to get this rolling. So our guest is GS Youngblood. Welcome, GS.
Thank you, Jim. Good to be here.
Good to be with you. Jess, just, I always hate when people read my bio, but give us a little introduction to yourself.
Yeah, the short version is I'm an author and a men's coach. I wrote 2 books for men about how to become into more of their grounded self and at the same time be more relational with their partner, which is a little bit of it's a little bit different than some of the men's work you'll see, which is a lot about being more alpha and how to be in charge. Problem is, if you don't have the relational skills and you're in a relationship, it's not going to work. She's not going to be impressed by your new alpha skills if you don't have those relational skills at the same time. So that's what I'm out helping men develop in themselves, that groundedness and that relational capacity.
So you got to be connected, present, and alpha.
Exactly. Yeah, easy stuff.
Yeah, easy. That sounds like no problem. So, what's interesting, GS, is just for some reason, what you just said made me think. I was scrolling through Instagram like a year ago or something, and there was these two young people, and I assume they were a couple, from this reel. And it was kind of like a podcast setting where there was, they were in the same room and everything. Mm-hmm. And he said, this guy said, look, if you become my wife, she goes, when I become your wife. And he said, what would I expect? And she said, me, I take care of the family. I take care of the house. I take care of you. That means at 2:00 in the morning, you're hungry. I'm getting up. I'm making you something to eat. I'm supporting you. And he said, okay, that sounds good. Well, then what do you expect from me? And she said, to protect and provide for the family no matter what. Mm-hmm. When I want to get into this, what is masculinity in today's world? So you can take either one of those, either comment on what I just said about the reel or tackle that question, either one.
Yeah, you described a very traditional relationship. And let's be clear out of the gate. I'll just speak for me. I'm not advocating that anybody has to take on a particular role. I think that's where people get in trouble, where they say, you have to do this and you have to do this. Everybody chooses who they want to be and what energy they want to inhabit and whether they want to be in their masculine or feminine. I speak to guys that choose to want to be more in their masculine energy, who are with women who want to be more in their feminine energy at times. This is not a 24/7 thing, by the way. We're really talking about kind of in that domain of intimacy between the two. And you want to take on they're choosing to take on these what are called polarized roles. And it's masculine, feminine polarity is what we're talking about here. So I want to get that out. Anything we say is not about compulsion; it's about choice. And yeah, the problem with a lot of couples these days is everybody's the same. There's a strong egalitarianism, and we just become the same. And I write about this a lot in my book. And after a while, in the realm of intimacy, same becomes boring. And if you want to keep the juice alive in your relationship, having a stronger polarity dynamic at times, at your times of intimacy, is a really powerful way to do that. So, and the flip side of that is when you start to become more same and you don't have that polarity, a lot of these things like loss of attraction can occur, loss of respect. You and I were just talking about attraction and loss of respect. What happens when over the long term there's too much sameness is you can start to notice an irritability in your woman, less interest in sexuality. These are all very common dynamics when you have a lack of polarity. And polarity is lacking when you as a man don't, number one, become more grounded so you're not so reactive all the time. Number two, you lead in the relationship, which doesn't mean you're always the leader. It just means you bring leadership into the relationship in specific ways. And then three, you create emotional safety for her, because a woman that doesn't feel emotionally safe is going to retract from you in self-protection. And so a guy who's not doing those three things is not inhabiting the masculine pole, as we would say. And that's when a lot of relationship issues start that you don't actually realize are connected to polarity, but when you start to root cause them, they are.
So I love what you just said at the end of those things where you said when that like if you react to her like to your partner, then I mean like I see that like sometimes and um uh when when I'm thinking of somebody in my life that's a really good friend, and I think about like something his wife said to him and his reaction to it.
Yeah.
And what that happened was then all of a sudden that wasn't a safe place for her, right? She
Yeah.
couldn't share what she was feeling
Yeah.
there. And he knows this, by the way, but that is damaging. It's like when like and I want to get into how all this feeds into our business and in our success and our happiness and everything else too. But I think it's really important. I mean, I love what you said about this polarity. And do you feel like if the man isn't masculine in the relationship, then there's a lot of women that say, okay, then I got to be masculine. I mean, talk about that.
Yeah.
I see that out there.
Well, you hit it on the head. If there's a vacuum of masculine leadership, she'll fill it. You know, if when you're talking about a strong, capable woman, she can fill it, and she will fill it, and she will not respect you as much. And
Right.
they'll begin to become over time. They'll begin to build up kind of a contempt, because for her, she can fill that role. She just doesn't want to have to. And that was actually something that my ex-wife. This is way back when, before I started my journey. She said to me, she was a very capable woman. And so I was working my ass off all the time at a very high flying tech company. And she said that to me because I would let her handle the taxes and the plumber and a lot of these leadership things. And she said to me, I can do this. I just don't want to have to all the
Mhm.
time. And I'm tired. And because she at times wanted to be able to relax into my lead once in a while and let go of the reins. And unfortunately, I had all my attention on work because I thought I was doing such big things and cutting $100 million deals. I thought that was way more important than what was going on at the house. And she distinctly felt my lack of leadership, and that was a huge part of the dissolution of that marriage.
Yeah, that makes sense. This is maybe from left field, but do you see like I really believe because of our and I don't want to go down this rabbit hole too far, okay? But I just want to mention this. I see from like the food that we eat and everything else, people's hormones are all screwed up. And
Hmm.
I know I have a friend who's a doctor. She does incredible work with hormones, and she sees women in their 20s that that are having hormonal problems, and she sees men that are
Yeah.
under 30 with like there was one gentleman that had an 88 testosterone level. Like,
Yeah.
is there a tie-in, GS, to that? Like where's this coming from? These
Yeah.
I just don't understand it.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't hold myself out as an expert on hormonal issues, but you're right. You hit it on the head. And it's so funny because tomorrow I'm doing a podcast with a guy. We're going to talk about exactly this, about low T and its impact on relational dynamics. But yeah, I think the strong preponderance of evidence would suggest strongly that hormonal disruption, because of just whatever in the environment or what we ingest, absolutely brings down testosterone. And when your testosterone comes down, you're not going to have that potency that she's wanting from you, that your woman is wanting from you. You're going to have a harder time really bringing that to bear if you've got disrupted hormonal levels.
Yeah, I even think on her side, because it's funny because I've been such this advocate for this doctor here locally to my friends that are in my neighborhood, and it's women who need some testosterone. Now, it's not going to make them masculine, right? It's going to actually make them more feminine because
Mhm.
everything is working the way that it's supposed to work for her and for you. And
Yeah.
I'm 59, so as you get older, you have to keep these hormone levels in check. You got to keep your estrogen down. Progesterone is something that most men would never even think about taking, but it increases your REM sleep, and you can't be physically fit if you don't sleep. I mean, I strongly believe that. And people struggle with sleep as they get older. And testosterone. When I talk to friends of mine and they're like, yeah, well, my testosterone is like 300, but my doctor said that's fine for somebody my age. I'm
Yeah.
like, now for me, I want to keep it like
Yeah.
800, 1,000, somewhere in that range.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, all right, let's get off of that just because that's probably a topic you're getting ready for the tomorrow episode, which I'm fascinated with the hormone thing. But let's talk about your relationship and if it's dysfunctional or it's thriving and how that relates to your ability to go out there, like you said,
Yeah.
crush it and do $100 million deals and build
Yeah.
real estate portfolios, businesses, everything. Why is there that tie into that?
Yeah. Jim, I'm gonna ask you. Let me answer one other question first before we get to that, because it'll give us that leaping off point. I want to make sure guys don't walk away from the first half of this discussion and say, "Oh, I got to just be more masculine," because that's pretty. It's pretty fuzzy as to what that actually means. The
Yeah.
book that I wrote, the first book that I wrote, was included and was built around a three-part blueprint for what I think is a modern model of masculinity. And my thesis is, if you embody these three qualities, you will be living more from your masculine core. And I'm just going to quickly share those with the
Awesome.
audience here. What I say is, number one, if you get more grounded, if you ground your nervous system, so what you'll do is embody more of a quality of stillness and of choicefulness and of presence. You'll occur as here more. You'll occur as more choiceful in how you speak and how you move, and you'll be less reactive to when she comes at you with something maybe you don't want to hear. She's giving you a hard reflection. You're going to be less reactive and jump into that immediate defensiveness when you've got a grounded nervous system. And so what I do is I work with guys on lots of ways to do that, but the primary way is through daily embodiment practice. And embodiment is a system of practices and principles that really help you ground more into your body. So that's part one. If you embody this quality, that's the first part of being more in your masculine core. The second one is to lead more, to provide structure, is how I call it. And so you're going to lead more in your logistical life, your emotional life, and your sexual life. And she's going to feel your what I call your directional energy that can extend even into more command presence in the bedroom, for instance. And so to the second part of this blueprint is to lead more in all three of those domains that I talked about. And the third is create a connection and safety. And if, like I said earlier, a woman that doesn't feel safe is going to be more closed to you. She's going to be more difficult to be with. She's going to be less open to sexuality. And so you want to build that sense of emotional safety and an emotional connection with her. And most guys are terrible at this. They're like, well, that sounds great, but I have no idea how to do that. And of course, that's the work that I'm doing with men to help them create more emotional safety and physical and financial. But most guys kind of have a lot of that physical and financial down. It's the emotional one that most guys are at a real deficit on. So when we're talking about masculinity, I want your readers to hear there's a model that you can embody that I created to be accessible to any man. If you embody these three qualities, you will be living more from your masculine core. And I'll pause there for a second before we bridge into the question you asked me.
No, I love, we're going to put in the show notes and we'll put a picture and everything else. But the masculine in relationship is GS's book. And, like, yeah, I've got other questions, but I'm going to let you go on to the next question before I ask them. I got lots of questions.
Yeah,
I've been divorced twice, GS. I got lots of questions. You and I
yeah,
might do
man.
some one-on-one work.
But you appreciate it more than anybody because of the
I
two
do.
divorces. That's how it was for me.
Yeah.
Divorced 15 years ago, and I learned how to. I did everything wrong, and I learned what killed connection rather than built connection. I learned what made me more grounded versus made me more needy.
Yeah.
So yeah, we learn by our failures for sure. And here's the thing: you can't crush it in business if your home life is not solid. And I can attest to this, man. When the marriage was going down over a number of years, I had really risen fast in a company called Broadcom that I'd been at a while. And you know what? The last, I don't know, 2 years I was there, I was a mess. I was really a mess. And I really, just to be frank about it, I kind of lived on my laurels over the last 2 years that I was there. And because I couldn't concentrate, it was extremely difficult to stay focused. And I was suffering because it had gotten so bad at work. Now, most guys aren't melting down into divorce, but they're on that slow burn where it's just a little tense. And yeah, you have fun once in a while and you have sex once in a while, but there's just a lot of that contention at home. and it really makes it hard. And I know you have a story of this because I think you shared before of your performance started to go down when you were having some marital problems as well. And that's the thing, it's going to drain your focus. You need to be a warrior out front with all of your capacities and tools, and you're not going to do that if you don't have your relationship right at home. So I'm starting to get more and more guys here in Silicon Valley where I live, who are realizing that and coming to me as clients because they want to fix that relationship at home.
I love some of the things. I did grab your book yesterday and read through it, and there's a couple things. There's a couple things that like stood out to me, and I want to ask you about this because, again, when I look back over, like, okay, what was my responsibility in the divorce, and what could I have done better? And like, you talk about presence as your currency and stuff. And I definitely was not present. I
Mhm.
felt the same way. Like, hey, I'm bringing in all this stuff. Like you can take care of this at home. Like, and then at 5 o'clock or whatever time I stopped working, it was like, hey, I just need to relax now. And she's
Yeah.
like, hey, I want that guy that I hear in there recording and doing this. That's the guy I want. I don't want the guy
Yeah.
that just wants to relax. And I think that you say something like strong spine, soft heart, right? And and I think that soft heart part is where a lot of guys miss that. And the reaction. I love what you said about reaction because that's not leadership. Leadership is not reaction, whether
Yeah.
it's in business,
Yeah.
whether it's in your personal relationship. Um, so talk about that. I know that's one of the things that you talk about in the book too, about your reactions. That those are like, I think you say like take ownership for your reactions or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, talk about
Well,
that.
let's talk about reactivity, and
Yeah,
really let's call it defensiveness because that's the one that most guys go
and
to.
we always hate to hear that. Don't you? I'm not being
Yeah.
defensive.
Why are you getting so defensive?
Yeah,
Well,
I'm not. Yeah,
it's because your facts are wrong, baby. And
yeah.
that's the thing. And let me explain defensiveness. So defensiveness is usually, it's an emotional expression, usually by the feminine partner, not always, but usually. And so it's an emotional expression by her. And then we, as the masculine partner, come back with an informational response. And so we end up talking two different languages, and never the twain shall meet. And that's the problem because when you start to do that, you're not hearing each other. It never goes anywhere. And because what you're trying to do is you're trying to convince her that her premise, her facts, her logic, all of that is wrong in a certain way. Therefore, she shouldn't feel the way she feels. And I got to tell you guys, there's no bigger pitfall than trying to tell somebody to not feel the way they actually feel, because feelings feel real to them, at least in the moment. And so it's like trying to, if your dog goes rabid, trying to talk nicely and pet them, it's not going to work. It's not going to go well. So never ever tell somebody they shouldn't feel the way they feel. But that's what we're doing when we're trying to get defensive and explain why we did it and why they're wrong and why they shouldn't be mad. And I got to tell you guys, over time, she's going to feel chronically unheard by you to the point where she just shuts down, because what she's going to conclude is that you are not a safe space for her to share and be real. So she's going to not be real. She's going to be fake. And then eventually is going to move towards being indifferent towards you. So, and unfortunately, this is a big pitfall for guys in business, because in business, you generally, in most businesses, you have to be highly analytical. You have to be able to think through shit in a very logical, fact based way, not in la la land, generally not based on emotion. And so, men in business, particularly entrepreneurs, like, we're hyper analytical, and that's the problem. Then we bring those analytical skills into the domain of intimacy and relationship, and that does not work. I'm telling you guys, that does not work at all. And that was one of the things that kind of I really suffered from, was bringing that, not only that analytical mind, but that get it done attitude and energy that I had at work, because that was the company culture. When I brought that home, my wife was like, like, no way, do not bring that home. And I didn't understand it at the time. I understand it now, though. So you got to be really careful, because what makes you successful in business, almost by definition, could make you unsuccessful in relationship at home.
Yeah, I see. There's so many things that you say that like they just hit really close to home, GS.
Yeah.
So I was thinking when you were talking about the conversation, if we were supposed to record last week and it was a screw up on our side, but I really wish we would have, because you might have helped my dinner conversation last night, because it was the same thing. It was like with somebody that I'm not in a relationship with, but I was in a relationship with. And she wanted to go back and rehash the relationship. And I'm like, I thought we were just getting together and having dinner and just like not
Mhm.
even anything. And it was just like I got defensive. She got mad. And I was like, no, that's not how it happened. And
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
I thought, what are we doing? I thought we were just going to go have a nice dinner and relax, and it
yeah,
wasn't like it wasn't romantic. So it was like should have been chill and everything else. And
yeah.
um, so
You
it,
know,
go
Jim,
ahead. I'm
what I
sorry.
would say about that, it
Yeah.
just, I don't know if you wanted me to comment on that, but
Oh yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
just this is my humble opinion. What you missed was her making a bid to heal all those things.
Ah.
And so you, like every other guy, including me, are like, that's not how that happened. And what we want to go to, we want to look over the facts, and where she kind of points it at you and she assembles facts. What's the emotion? What is she feeling behind? And just we you kind of you ignore the facts. So I have a phrase in the book called "feelings first, facts later."
Mm.
What that means is we don't ignore the facts. We just put them on hold a little bit so we can then give her some emotional resonance. And what will happen is then her nervous system will ground and regulate. And then you can circle back with the facts. So I tell guys, don't just ignore reality and facts, just sequence them properly. And when you do that, it actually heals those wounds that never got healed. They actually got frozen in time inside of her. So I think she was probably trying to unpack some of that. And, when they do that, we do have a real opportunity to heal that, because then it goes away instead of just kind of coming up every 5 years, which is, we've all experienced.
Yes, I blew that. Fail for Oliver.
Yeah.
I'm a slow learner. So how do you? I love all this stuff that you're helping men with, and I love the book and the principles in the book. And I don't know all of them, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to read it from cover to cover. But I wanted to kind of thumb through it before our interview. Actually, I got it last week, and then we didn't record. But um, the the how do you help? Like, do you coach men one on one? Do you have like a mastermind? Do you have courses? Like, tell
Yeah.
me how you help people.
Yeah, where I have my most of my attention is on my boot camp. So it's
Okay.
a 10 to 12 week program that we do online on Zoom. We do it live, but it's online, and it's a small cohort, usually of 12 men. And I take them deep into the three elements of the masculine blueprint that I had described earlier. And the benefit over just reading a book is it's live and it's experiential, and we're going into breakout rooms and doing practices together with other men. We're sharing our experience. They're able to ask questions about their specific situation. So the boot camp is the one that I love doing the most. The guys seem to all really love it, and we've sold out our seventh one. We're starting in 2 weeks. So the boot camp is the biggest one. I still do some one-on-one coaching, so I'll have one-on-one coaching clients, and I do enjoy that, even though I'm doing less of that these days. And then I do a live in-person workshop. I do one or two a year. My next one's in February, so it's going to be almost a year, in Sayulita, Mexico, which is an amazing beach town down on the west coast of Mexico. Um, and then I've got other things like group coaching that's a little more affordable for people, and all of this is on my website. But those are the primary ways to interact with me. Once you've read, I always say read the book first. So go to Amazon and get the book, The Masculine in Relationship.
What's the what? Oh, you just made me think of something. Um, Oh gosh, I'll come back to it. So, like, when I love what you just said about read the book and do this. One of the things that I learned early on in my life, for some reason, it was like just kind of like by chance, is I would read a book, and because I was a horrible student and I wasn't very good at comprehension, so I learned a trick that if I wrote down the key points and then I wrote down questions about the key points, and then I would send a letter back in the day. This is, again, I'm an old guy. So I would send a letter and I would say, hey, I had some questions for you as the author. And you'd be shocked how many times the author would send me back
Hmm.
answer
Hmm.
questions. So now when I did email, like even like the Go Giver, Bob Berg, I sent it back and he came on the show because I sent him a couple of emails saying, hey, what about this, or how about the law of reciprocity, or like how, like how come men struggle with that? And and they always answer, right? So, but like if you read the book, then you sign up for your boot camp. That's kind of what you're doing, right? And then at the end, if you have questions, then you can go further or need some one-on-one or more coaching or whatever. So I
Yep.
love that. But I love the concepts in the book, and I want people to read it. So I'm not going to go through. I gave you some of my favorite ones, but like uh, I love this subject because I think this is a huge kind of, not unknown, but like this it's this elephant in the room in relationships. And all of us guys want to have a better relationship with our partner, and we're like, what am I doing wrong, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
we're not giving our partners what we need because we think that somehow is going to be in weakness, but it's actually in strength. And like and I know you do a lot of this stuff in martial arts, but like, and I've never done martial arts, so I'm not saying I'm an expert, but I know you show weakness and strength and weakness, right? If I'm a 12th degree black belt and somebody wants to come up and fight me, the biggest thing is like, just let, buy them a beer, like, or
Yeah.
whatever,
Right.
like
Yes.
I learned a long time ago, if you have to hit somebody, your hands hurt, so
Yeah.
I don't want to hit anybody. So talk about maybe, just that martial arts connection, the spirituality connection. I noticed it was interesting. I'm a Christian dude, but like you said, 12 people, I don't know if that's just a number, or if the disciples, or, so talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, let me go back to the first thing you said
Yeah.
about martial arts in yielding as a form of strength, because I think that's the juiciest thing I can answer in that question.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's instead of going, you have a disagreement with your woman, she's upset about something, and instead of trying to litigate the whole thing with her, you can just say, you know what? I have a phrase, and it's called "You may or may not be the problem, but you are the solution."
Ooh.
And so, you have a flare up with your woman, and she's upset with you. Don't try to litigate it all the time. I mean, sometimes you might need to, but maybe make it more common that you don't try to litigate it and figure out who's right, what the facts are. Because it doesn't matter. What matters is right now her nervous system is activated, and that's the thing that needs to be addressed. And so drop your arms, let your shields down, and be like, I'm seeing that I hurt you, baby. Tell me more. Now, you wouldn't say it as stilted as I just said it, but that's what you're going to say. It's just like, drop your got to be right. You got to fix the facts, and just get curious about your woman's emotional state, because guess what? It's real for her, even though it sounds crazy a lot of the time. And we could talk on and on about what this notion of crazy, but I'm not going to.
Yeah.
It may sound a little crazy, but for her, it's her feminine nervous system hands her pretty strong emotions that she can't regulate herself. She
Hmm.
needs you to help regulate her. So I think that's one of the key things you can do is, at times when you choose, not all the time and not compulsively and not out of fear, but when you choose to, drop the litigation, drop your defenses, drop your explanations in defense, and get curious about her emotional state, and try to regulate her nervous system before you even continue in the conversation at all. And I think that's the corollary to what you said about a 12th degree black belt who's like, hey bro, let me buy you a beer,
Yeah.
because you're bigger. That 12th degree black belt, he's so skilled, he can be bigger than the moment. And that's what you need to do in relationship, men, is you got to have these relational skills and capacities that are so much bigger than her mood of the moment. And when you do that, you're going to become the man that she's been craving her whole life.
I love that. I love that. No, you explained that so well. And there's one, like when you say to somebody, "Hey, I'm curious," like you get their attention, right? So I love that you said curious, because,
Yeah,
and there's a great
that's.
scene. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to quickly comment. That's one of the core skills that we work on in the boot camp, in the relationship repair boot camp, is curiosity. It's actually a skill you can learn. It's not just a thing. You could actually learn very specific techniques about how to be more curious. And the feminine wants to be known. They're tired of being dismissed and not known and understood and felt. All they want to do is be known by you and felt by you. So this curiosity is a powerful tool for building emotional connection.
Yeah, and it's funny because like as men, I think my friends that are married 20, 30, 40 years, the only thing like sometimes they complain about the physical intimacy, right? And it's
Mhm.
like you're missing out that if you don't have this other stuff, you're not getting the physical intimacy, right? And
So true, so true. Because their heart is the gateway to their body, to their physicality and their sexuality.
but once you get that, then you better be careful what you wish for, right? Because then that turns that turns their whatever system on to be like, okay, let's be everything. And it's like something like there's a woman online and she teaches a lot of tantric stuff and like just like what she calls like intense monogamy. So like
Mhm.
when you think like when you have that connection, you would never look at another woman or she wouldn't look at another man when you have that. And I think that's something that's missing in relationships today because I read somewhere where okay, 50% of marriages end in divorce, 45% are complacent, bored, infidelity, all the, so 5%,
Yeah,
that's all we got is 5%.
yeah,
Well, okay. Um, it, I think that's sad, but it's because but it shows what you're teaching people is so needed.
yeah,
Um, because if that's the case, you got to, how do you get in the 5%, right? In life, it's pretty
yeah,
easy to get in the top 5%. You
yeah.
actually have to try, so
Yeah, and for the guys, my contribution to the world is, hey, you want to get in that top 5%? Live the blueprint,
yeah.
embody the blueprint, and live it every day.
I love that. All
Yeah.
right. So I think I could talk to you about this all day long and, use this as my own personal session. We'll just cut out all the stuff from me. No, just kidding. GS, what's the best advice anybody's ever given you along your path?
I, th- I I think I don't know. This is a common one, so it won't be a surprise. But I think it's what my dad told me. It's just like do the right thing even when nobody's looking.
Hmm.
I think that's really the best one that's guided me over the years. It's so funny because I was just with my dad last week, and we've had a situation come up. I'm helping him with his trust, and we were both in agreement because of what he taught me that we needed to handle it a certain way, even though it was going to actually impact him negatively. But it was the right thing to do, even if nobody would know that's how it was structured. It felt really good. It was an affirmation of what he taught me when I was a kid.
I love that. And yeah, that is maybe a common one, but it's common because it's so true. And sometimes simplicity is elusive, right? So like to me, what happens is if you don't do the right thing when nobody's looking, you didn't do the right thing. And it starts to build on you, and negative energy attracts more negative energy. And then all of a sudden, you're wondering why the heck you're in this rut.
Yeah,
And but if you do the right thing, then positive energy attracts positive energy and you start to
yeah,
build, right?
yeah.
Slow, doesn't matter if you go slow or fast. All right. Last question. If God came down from heaven and only allowed you to retain the knowledge that you've received from one book, what would that book be?
Oh, man, that is a tough one. Um, I think one of the books that impacted me the most was Letting Go by David Hawkins.
I don't know that one. Okay.
He's a in philosophical circles he's well known, but not in mainstream. And I swear this book is like this thick, and I've never highlighted a book so much.
Mm,
It's a beautiful read. I recommend it to everyone.
I'm gonna get it because you know what? I love that question because when you only get one book to say and somebody says something I haven't read, people say, Rich Dad, Poor Dad or Think and Grow Rich. And those are great answers. If that's the book for you, I want that answer. But
Hmm.
I think, oh, I've read that. Maybe I should read that again, or something else. But when it's something that I haven't read and I don't have any idea what's in the book, I get excited because when I was 18 years old, a janitor told me that if I wanted to be an expert in something, to read an hour a day about it for 6 weeks. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but it's made a difference in my life. I listened to the janitor, right? And um, uh, and I always say that because wisdom comes from sometimes where we don't expect it.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
All right. So, all right. You got the boot camps. We have the book. We're going to put all that in there. The website. Tell everybody the website.
gsyoungblood.com.
Awesome. I'm going to go and check it out. And I know I'm going to encourage some friends of mine to get into this the 8th boot camp, whenever that comes out. And yeah, I love this subject. I got so many other questions, and maybe we'll have to do a follow-up. Maybe I'll do the boot camp, and then we'll have a follow-up appearance, and I'll have lots of maybe better questions.
That's a great idea. Let's do it.
Yeah. GS, thank you so much for coming on the show, and thank you, audience. Hopefully, men in the audience, things happen. This is like, hey, this is not. There's no downside to learning this information. So it's only going to help you in your business. Only going to help you in your relationships. And what else is there? Your relationships are number one, and then to be able to provide for your family. So I thank you again for coming on. And we're going to end this the way we always do, with the incredible words of Earl Nightingale and The Strangest Secret. Take it away, Earl.
Here's the key to success and the key to failure. We become what we think about. Now let me say that again. We become what we think about.
Thanks for listening to the Breakaway Wealth Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to this show wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode. If you want to start increasing your wealth building ability right now, go to community.createtailwind.com to join our free online community and get access to free, in-depth training designed to help you build real, lasting wealth. See you next week.